Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Total Podcast with me, your host, Phil Scott. So, on today's episode of the Total Podcast, I have a very special guest. She's done the podcast before. She is a children's book author and so much more. Her name is Jannesy DeLeon. So, without further ado, here is Jannesy. So, Jannesy, thank you so much for doing the podcast again today.
Thank you, Phil, for having me again.
You're welcome. So you've written another book and it's due out pretty soon. So I'm going to have you talk about your book. But before you do, tell my listeners and especially my new listeners who may have not have heard our first interview, tell us about the first book that you wrote and then tell us about your next one. So first of all, tell us about your first book that you wrote.
My debut book was called Tag Your It, a story on inclusion with Gabby and Nicky, and I happen to have it here, so I'll just show everyone quickly.
All right.
And it was inspired by my two children who are adults now, but it's the story of a nonverbal girl in a wheelchair who wants to prove to the kids in the park that she can play tag as well. And so, and it's just a little bit of kind of our story and why I kind of I decided to write a series inspired by them, because as children, a lot of times, because they're nonverbal and can't really communicate their likes or dislikes to others, or the fact if they want to play or not. I mean, other children or parents were always reluctant in like including them in things. And I just wanted to kind of expose young children now at an early age to say, hey, I might be different, but I'm just like you. I want to play, and kind of just expose them. And that way then everyone can be included. You know, everybody wants to belong. So I think that was important for me. And that's the big message of the first book. And so now the second book is coming out. And so I'm excited about that.
Okay, tell us about the title of your new book. And I'm going to ask you another question in relation to the other book too, because I kind of want to know the process. So tell us about the title of your new book.
My title of my new book is Not a Shot, a story of overcoming fear with Gabby and Nicky.
All right. Now, how long, Jannesy, did it take you to write the first book? So how long did it take you to write the first book? And then how long did it take you to write the second one?
The first book took me obviously a little longer because initially I thought, okay, how hard can it be to write a children's book? And I found that really quickly, oh, it is very hard, because you only have a certain amount of words to get a story in, and something that either captivates and keeps children's attention. And so you're very limited. And that's really hard when you're trying to tell stories and you're like, okay, now this is getting a little too long. I decided to take a writing class, an intensive writing course with Journey to Kidlit. And I realized that really quickly that there is a method to writing children's books, and I use their templates, and with the help of who then became my publisher later on, Bibliokid, Brooke, her name is Brooke Gansimer, and she's also an author, and so she really helped me figure out. She kind of just went deep and said, look, Jannesy, what is it? What's the story that you really want to tell? What is it that you're trying to convey to the young readers? And that's when I realized, well, my kids, want to play too. My kids want to participate in things too, and want to be included. And she goes, there you go. That's your story. How do you want to go about this? And that's how it came together. And now in writing Not a Shot, it was much easier, because now I have my structure, how I go about it, and the editing process, which is always my favorite, was much quicker. So I was able to get this out my manuscript much quicker, done much quicker than before.
Now,
so now it's coming out, and it comes out, I think, in 8 days now.
Now, lengthwise, are they about the same?
Yes, they're 32 pages, and we try to stay within 5, no more than 800. So I think the initial one was like even less than 500 words, and now the second one is more like maybe 600-700 words. And so, and you always want to stay within that range, especially 500 and 800 words, because again, kids' attention spans are quick, and so you don't want to do anything too long. And so it's important to tell your whole story, have the whole arc within that range.
And you've used the same illustrator for both books, correct?
I did. It just made sense. He kind of captured the way I wanted Gabby and Nicky to look in the first book, and it was just a no-brainer to then use them again.
And the illustrations are so beautiful and so well done.
Yes, I love vivid. I always was attracted to books with vivid colors and bright colors. And so then I wanted to do that in my books. And Gasper, that's his name, Gasper Sabatel, he did a great job.
Now, what has been the feedback been like for the first book, and what are you looking forward to with the second book?
You know, it was important that my books start getting into schools and libraries, and that's what it's done. I was really excited because within the last 6 months, it's called the Epic. It's like a reading platform that's in hundreds of districts,
Yes.
school districts. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
And they've purchased, I would say, almost a total of like 500 ebooks,
Wow.
and it's on their platform. My sister, she's a special education teacher, and she found it by accident because one of her students in her class is obsessed with Tag You're It, and he was looking it up on the Epic reading platform, and there it was, and I didn't even know. And so that was super exciting. So it means that there's credibility there, that my story is telling, an important, it's conveying an important message about belonging and inclusion. And the fact that typical children are enjoying the book. It's not just for kids like my kids. I mean, I also want my other children to see themselves represented in my books. That is the goal. But the point is that for typical children to enjoy the story and feel that kind of camaraderie with the main character, Gabby, and root for her, which was exciting. And so I have a lot of people who I come across in events who either have the book and tell me that that's their children's favorite book. And their children who, as I said, are just typical children, not with any special needs or disabilities. And that excites me even more.
And so you've been inspiring not only children, but adults as well.
Yes, I mean, I hope that not that my story and the fact that I can still find purpose in the midst of my caregiving life, I hope that inspires and motivates other parents like myself, especially caregivers, because it really is a very stressful everyday job that we have. And I try to be very positive all the time. And of course, it's very difficult because, it's life is a roller coaster as it is. And then when you add, the kind of responsibilities that we have, not only making sure that, they're okay and healthy and that you're okay and healthy, it doesn't leave a lot of room for your own thoughts and dreams.
Right.
And I finally said, no, I'm not getting any younger. I want to do something that means something. And I want through my kids, to change the world in some way, to leave their mark in the world. And so this is how I'm starting. I have a lot of other things that I want to do, to build upon the children's book series, but we're starting with that. And hopefully as I continue to write more books and I can veer off into other avenues
And
that are for me.
yeah, and that went into my next question. How important do you feel your role as an advocate is? Because you're getting your message out there is so important, because there are a lot of disabled kids out there that maybe aren't being, I guess the best way to put it, they aren't getting the attention that they deserve and they're not getting the assistance that they need. So sharing your experience and story with not only the kids, but parents and teachers and other professionals, healthcare professionals out there, feel is very important. So how do you feel about your role as an advocate is?
Well, I feel that's how my role is evolving. As I mean, I've always been an advocate for my children. I mean, now as they transition into adult healthcare system, I find that I have to advocate even more because the level of care for whatever reason changes. I mean, usually adults can speak for themselves and advocate for themselves, but my children can't. And so I have to now make sure that I am that voice and that I insist when I feel like something is lacking,
Right.
which was an experience that I had just recently with my daughter. Um, and so it's really important for caregivers to be not to feel like they are what because initially I was always scared to have a voice, like, okay, I don't want to be that pestering parent or, that troublesome parent. But no, your kid's health is always important. And so, no, you're not being a pest. No, you're not a troublemaker. You're making sure that your child, whether they're children or adults, they're getting the level of care that they deserve. And so it's important that you be that voice. And that's where I feel like my role now, just, it's evolving from being a children's book author to more being an advocate. And maybe, that is my goal. I've been doing research and writing. I do would love to write something that will give like to be another added resource for caregivers and parents.
Yes.
um and also just to inspire them, like, yes, we're doing this, but we can also do this. And if I can do what I'm doing with the load I have, having two children with disabilities who are have very complex medical needs and are completely dependent for care. And it does take a village because I help with nursing. I have my parents that help me, my sister, my sister-in-law, and friends. But if I can do this and still create a life for myself that has meaning and makes me wake up happy in the morning because I'm excited about the things that can happen, the possibilities, I know that other people can do it. I know it.
Now you've written a third book that's yet to be published, correct?
Yes. In the good old days when I feel like I had more time, I did have the third manuscript is done. It's just really because I've gone the hybrid way. It's a little pricier. But Bibliokid Publishing, shout out to them. They've done an excellent job. They're just true professionals. And all I have had is wonderful experience with them. And I still kind of want to still publish with them. But, again, as a single mom, I have to have several jobs and try to figure out how to get it out there in the world. But I'll do it because I'm determined. If I manage to do these first two, I will get the third book out while still trying to do other things. Because again, I have a lot of ideas, and my dream is to start a foundation in my kids' name so they can have a voice out there and leave their mark in the world. And then again, still me do things that I enjoy and that also bring meaning to my life. So yes, I'm excited about the third book. It's introducing our pet because she is the star of the family, believe it or not, our Samantha. And so I want to kind of introduce her to her, to all the young readers.
Now your book is due out October 3rd,
Third, very soon.
2023,
Yep.
correct? Yes.
Next week.
And where can readers, and we've spoke before, and you have this neat thing that's going on with your book, with people who buy the book on your website. So tell us about that.
Oh yes, because we got like limited edition glossy covers that you can only get on my website. And once they run out, they run out. And my website is www.jannessydeleon.com, and that's where you can get a personal autographed copy with a couple of freebies, bookmarks, and a thank you card. But you can only get the glossy covers on my website. But the books are all on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Goodreads, so you can purchase them on those online bookstores as well.
And I'll make sure to put those links to your book on the show notes. So on the video version on YouTube and as well on the podcast version, the audio version, those links will be in my show notes. So for the listeners.
Yes, and for those that don't know what it's about a boy who is scared of going to the doctor. And the reason why I think October was perfect because we'll be in the midst of flu, RSV, COVID season. And so I was just hoping to alleviate that anxiety and stress that surrounds vaccinations and stuff. So I'm hoping that the book will, in a very comedic way, help children not stress out so much and overcome that little fear of going to the doctor at this time. So
That's
I'm excited
awesome.
about that.
That's awesome. Well, I am so thankful that you decided to come on the podcast again. I think what you're doing is amazing, and it's a message that needs to get out there. And by you writing these books and sharing your story and your adventures with your kids, with readers out there, and your real life experiences, just by being able to connect with the public and do the events that you do. And I'm sure you'll probably have some upcoming as time evolves. You'll have some
Yes, yes.
more.
I'm working on stuff. I just got a return call from our local hospital, so I'm hoping to do something with them because I'm hoping that together we can partner and collaborate and bring more awareness regarding the importance of vaccinations, especially during this flu season, because my children are both immunocompromised and their health is of the utmost importance to me. So it's important that we bring awareness of the importance of getting your flu shots and your COVID shots.
And anything I can do to help get the message out, let me know. I'll be happy to
I
help.
appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, Jannesy, thank you so very much for coming on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Everybody, check out Not a Shot. Let your kids read it for yourselves. Teachers, share it with your children. It'll be a great book. So, and I can't wait to read it myself. So, Jannesy, thank you so very much for coming on today. I truly appreciate you coming on.
It's been an honor, Phil. Thank you again for having me.
You're welcome. And hopefully I'll have you on again for the next book.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Jannesy.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Jannesy. So with that, that's the end of this episode of the Total Podcast with me, your host, Phil Scott. Everyone stay safe. Be careful out there. Take care of one another. And we will talk again soon. If you like the content on this channel, please like it and subscribe.